Okay, check, testing, check. 1 2 1 2. Hope everybody has been doing well lately. Okay, check. Yeah, hope everybody's been doing well lately as we are back with a live stream. It's been months since the last time I did a live stream. Well, I did the recent unboxing my Grand Admiral Thrawn figure. That's in my living room. It's beautiful. If you haven't seen that live stream, you go check it out. It's just more so me struggling to get certain things together for that figure. But we are back, guys. I just wanted to do maybe like an hour, half hour, whichever, 45-minute stream for today, just to talk about episode 1 of Skeleton Crew, which I really loved. Not sure if you liked it, if you didn't like it. Gonna be definitely doing some other videos on episode 1 and then episode 2. From my knowledge, the episodes are going to be dropping on Tuesdays, since they only dropped on that one specific Wednesday. But episode 3 will be dropping on Tuesday, and I think it's only 8 episodes, I think, but don't quote me. But yeah, like I said, definitely hope everybody's been doing well. I've been fairly okay. The year has pretty much kicked my butt, but that's life. It happens at the end of the day. But with that, we are gonna dive into what I wanted to chat with you all about, with just certain things within the episode. I know, like, I grabbed a lot of images from episode 1, but I'm not going to touch on a lot of stuff. I do have a video in mind from episode 1 that I want to do. Actually, I'm doing the wrong thing here. Where are you, Skeleton Crew? Go images. Here we go. So yeah, let me remove myself from the camera. So yeah, episode 1, the debut of both episodes. The first episode was titled "This Could Be a Real Adventure." That the literally, like, the opening scene here. Well, really, it was even before that. It was, how they have the various characters popping up on the, per the episode. And there was one specific spot where it had Anakin's, goggles and helmet in the specific opening. But, with that, they did dive into letting us know where this specific show is set. This is basically after the Return of the Jedi. And some interesting stuff that I'm definitely going to be looking to do some videos on, because the actually got the wrong thing. The culture for the show, specifically with the specific characters, is very interesting. Did not really, we didn't know. We sort of kind of had an idea of what the show was gonna be. Of course, it's set at a space and time where it's nothing but, the focal point are these kids. The focal point is Jude Law's character. But with the opening spot here, there were a lot of callbacks from episode 4. And there were specific things that I specifically looked at, and I was like, yo, this reminds me of Andor. Now, they did indeed mention the Andor planet. I did talk about that in the video. They mentioned Andor planet in episode 2. That will definitely dive a little bit more to in my live stream for episode 2. Hopefully tomorrow, if not tomorrow, Tuesday. But then I'll be working on whatever videos I'll be working on for episode 3 to come. But I did enjoy this spot here specifically where they focused on these specific openings. And actually I grabbed the wrong one because they, per this specific one here, this final spot where it talks about the pirates boldly brand their armored hulls as a sign to all ships surrender or perish, basically pass away, per the final word there. That I was like, oh man, like, okay, this is kind of, interesting, right? But there are specific things that are possibly leaning towards a specific character, maybe possibly showing up in the show's favorite Star Wars character. I'm hopeful that this character shows up in the show, because he is definitely one of my favorite characters of Star Wars within the Pirate realm. But I did enjoy this spot with the ship pulling up just before, the second ship pulled up, because again, this is more so harping back to episode 4, to A New Hope, with the opening and everything. And we're noticing that they're sort of kind of sticking with this type of a feel when it's pertaining to the opening scenes of Star Wars. This continues to be a thing. They continue to show a specific planet out in space or whatever the case, or ship or whatever. But once the specific main ship pops up and it drives these specific things into the sides of the ship, I was just like, oh man, they're opening this show quickly with what they're looking to do. And like I said, the specific things that are driving from this pirate ship into this smaller ship. This specific spot here reminded me of Andor, and I thought I grabbed. Now they did hammer home, episode 4 was specifically here in this spot. It just reminded you a lot of what all happened in this opening episode. Reminded you of when Vader's ship breached the specific side. But this spot here reminded me of Andor. It was episode, I believe it was episode 8. Let me go find, because I did look it up on my, I still have images from Andor season 1. And I believe that it is episode 8, with how the pirates were crossing over, and it reminded me of Narkina 5 from Andor. If I can find, just bear with me for a second. Like I said, I think it's episode 8. It might be episode 5. Like, as soon as I saw this, I was like, oh man, that it just reminded me of the prison. Just double check if it was episode 8. It may have been episode 5 or so. Here we go. So it was just the glass. Actually, what am I doing? Oh, sorry, that's not what I wanted to do. Let's get rid of that. And let's bring up what I was supposed to bring up, because I went the wrong way. Went to the wrong way to get this information. Oop. Wrong one. Come on. It may have been episode, actually it's episode 9. It was just this spot here on Andor. And actually I have to fix this. Let me see if I can fix transform. No, that's not it. There we are. So the opening scene of episode 1, when the ship, like I said, when it showed that spot, this specific thing popped in my head when I saw this. It was from episode 9 of Andor season 1, where this like hallway, it reminded me, that specific spot from episode 1 of Skeleton Crew reminded me of this spot here from Andor season 1 episode 8. I was just like, oh. That did not sit right. Yeah. So like I said, with the pirates crossing over, and like I said, this spot just reminded me of Andor season 1 episode 8. But with that, once the pirates get in there, you got the specific people defending the ship. But it was wild that once the pirates came in, and also too, we did see something specific here. This stood out. Some fruit. This one lady here was hovering over the the produce. Guarding the fruit with her life. I thought that I got a little bit of a chuckle out of seeing the fruit here. Per this specific scene here, opening scene here. But then that's when we got the opening spot. Again, this specific spot just reminds you of episode 4 with the stormtroopers coming in, Vader coming in. But a lot of the like what 6, or I want to say 6. I wasn't really counting, just throwing a number out there. But definitely a few of the pirates who ran in got taken out by the specific people. But this one specific alien here got shot in the eye, his left eye, right? And it's like it didn't even really phase the alien. It was just like, oh, you plucked me in my eye, and it decided to wants to turn to the specific person that hit it, took him out. I just was just like, wow, like that takes a lot of strength to get, literally get hit in the eye. You lose, it lost his eye, right? So yeah, I was just like, wow. Now this specific spot, this is literally stepping outside of Star Wars. When I saw this on the screen, it literally reminded me of, one of my favorite animated DC shows of all time, which is Justice League Unlimited. Where their home base that sits outside of it just reminded me of that. Now, technically, I could have literally said that this kind of reminds me of High Republic and their specific home base out in space, but this literally did it. That was the first thing that popped in my head, was just like, oh, this reminds me of Justice League Unlimited, their home base up in space. So but that was just my initial response when I saw that up there. But I did like the fact that these specific pirates were flying over, because the ship was trying to shoot. It had its gun shooting out at their, the pirate ship, and they sent specific people over to shut down the gunner here. They put the bombs on the sides of the thing to make it explode. I thought that was pretty cool to see that occur here in the opening spot of episode 1. But then that's when we ended up getting the introduction to Brutus here, who pops in. Brutus, when I first originally seen Brutus, it literally, I forgot to take a note on this, but this was something that popped in my head. Give me 1 second. Now, they're supposed to be doing like a show or something a remaster or something like that. Um, for this movie for He-Man. Um, and I can't remember if specifically the one character like Brutus reminded me of the one character from He-Man back in the movie from back in 1987. Uh, it was as soon as I said it, I was like oh he reminds me of the one creature back in He-Man. But Brutus comes rushing in and just like takes him out. Brutus is a very, from what I can tell from this specific character, very easily a good and great character when it's pertaining to defending and even fending, warding off enemies. And then we get Captain Silvo, the debut of Captain Silvo, which is 99% sure this is Jude Law's character. This is Ja Nawood. I want to say this is Captain Silver because even in the credits they literally have Jude Law credited, so this has to be Captain Silver. And I felt like the introduction to Captain Silver was a cool introduction to the character, to be honest. I did feel like when they showed Jude Law's character, was just like cool. But then we get the spot where Captain Silver grabs I guess I don't know if this specific person is, say, the captain of this ship. I have no clue. I want to say that this is the specific captain. He's pretty much Captain Silver's requesting of the vault. But again, this again harkens back to episode 4, to Vader grabbing the one specific character, lifting him up, with strength. And again, they just have this spot here with Captain Silver and this character. But again, like I said, of course it reminds you of Vader. But then they hit the vault with Captain Silver making the I guess like the speech. Yeah, the speech. He's talking to his men, trying to give them hope of saying like, hey, like some of you may have lost, your trust in me, your belief in me, but we made it to the spot so that you can put more faith in me, put more trust in me. This was all for, this just wasn't just something, this isn't a lose-lose for you all. We made it to a goal and it's finally here. But in the background we do see Vane, a specific character that they decided to bring back from Mandalorian season 3, episode 17 and 21. He's there in the background. Urkel is also here, which I think I did grab. There he is. Gunter, aka Urkel, he's there. I didn't see him originally in the beginning. When I rewatched the episode, I was like, oh, there he is. Because originally when I first watched the episode, I was like, oh, he showed up in episode 2. That was his first introduction in the show, but it wasn't. It was right here, specifically here in this spot. But once Silvo finalizes his speech, that's when the door of the vault falls, and you see inside the vault. Now, my original thought was it's empty because the items that they're looking for are off to the side. They're off in whatever drawers or whatever that they're looking for. Of course, they're talking about credits, specific Republic credits. But again, like I said, originally when I first watched it, I was like, oh, even though it does look bare, my original thought was like, oh, like they're just in specific spots in the there. It's not like it's fully empty, but that's not the case. That wasn't the case. There was just one specific credit lying on the ground. So it kind of makes me think that when Brutus went to pick up this one specific public credit, kind of makes me think that somebody knew that they were coming. Not sure if it was an inside job. Not sure if Brutus was the one that set this all up so that he can take command. Um, but I just had the feeling that this specific spot here was there's more to it, which of course then causes, you know, the mutiny, the okay, yeah, we're through with you as being our captain. You know, this is the last straw. You failed us. We're gonna, make it do what it do. And of course, he tries to defend himself, and they take him and shut him down. Then we get the specific skeleton crew sign here before we walk into episode 1. So it was just really cool just to see the opening come back on camera here. It was just really just cool just to see the opening scene here. Like I said, it did remind me of episode 4. It reminded me of Andor. Like I said, even one specific spot where Brutus reminded me of the one character from He-Man from the movie with Dolph Lundgren back in '87. Definitely, this still takes me back to me being as a kid back then, to see these memories resurface. But it to me, it just felt like Star Wars, but it just made me feel like a kid again, just in the spot. But it really, like I mentioned in I think a video or two last week, where, man, guys, when I tell you I was smiling ear from ear from technically the start of the episode all the way to the end, and even the second episode, I just could not stop smiling, because this show really tugged at the core of my child, the inner child within me. And as a Star Wars fan, I was just like, man, like, because a lot of fans per this specific show were skeptical. I even have a buddy of mine, he was talking about something else specifically not pertaining to this, because he hasn't watched the episodes yet, but I kind of feel like he would have the same response with this as with something else, where he was saying his basic response to that other show, which again I feel like it's going to be with possibly with Skeleton Crew, is that he's like, man, I was hating, I thought it was going to be whack, blah blah blah, and I'm really loving it, and I'm like, good, and now my hope is that when he sits down to watch episodes 1 or 2 of Skeleton Crew, that then indeed it will indeed be hopefully will be the same response. But there were fans out there that were saying that, they weren't sure, that it just seemed like this might not be for them. But, many of the fans that have watched, from the Star Wars universe have watched, and many of them have said indeed that they have enjoyed really even like a lot, even a little bit or even a lot of episode 1 and 2 of Skeleton Crew. I'm going to come back off of camera. Now this spot here, when they showed this originally, plus I heard other people say, because it was true, because I had the same response, was, oh, this must be like a specific sand world or something, mountain or something like that, but it really wasn't that. It was Wim's bed. But this specific spot here, more specifically, he was doing what many of us did. I know that I did, even in my early to mid teenage years. I had specific toys and I played with them, in my rooms or in the living room or wherever. This is just another humongous inner child moment for myself as a fan of this type of a show. This took me back to being as a kid, back many moons ago, and seeing Wim sit here and just play. If you had the subtitles on, it did state that he was voicing a Jedi and a Sith. No real specific Jedi or Sith. He was just voicing good versus evil and just having it all a blast. Now I know that I did a video talking about Spaceballs, because that specific scene from Spaceballs where Darth Helmet was playing with his toys, and his first in command popped into his room and interrupted, and he was just like saying, like, did you see anything? He was like, no, I didn't see you playing with your toys again. I just that this specific spot reminded me of Spaceballs. It just did for me, at least for myself. But I loved seeing Wim just sit here, just playing, making the noise, making the, the noise with his mouth, all of that stuff. It literally just this opening spot with Wim and the toys was just really, really cool. Just really, really fun. But then we get the opening spot with his, the background of his room. You can just tell, like, the kid, he has organization in the room. You can tell from his father how his father is raising him. We do find out that the mom is no longer alive. His mother, Wim's mother, is no longer alive. But the father does have, Wim, as a standard. He and a lot. I feel like some fans will feel like he may not be a good father. But that's, to me, from my own perspective, I'm looking at him like, okay, he's just a father out here. Just, he does take care of his, take care of his son, takes care of his home. He's just that he's not home much because he's at work a lot. And, but he's at least instilled in Wim to say, hey, whether I'm around or not, keep your room as neat as possible. Yes, Wim walked away, not making his bed and stuff like that. Because his dad was calling him to come in the kitchen to get some breakfast. But we do see, once again, bringing up Andor, we see Wim here pouring some cereal, and what does he do? He grabs the milk that is a specific color, and that color of the milk that he's pouring, it looks sort of kind of bluish, sort of kind of reminding you of cereal when he's in the kitchen with his mom and eating his cereal with the blue milk, but it looks like a greenish type of a color, greenish bluish type of a color. So it just, like, that kind of stood out to me. But when you look at the table itself, you do notice, yes, the two action figures there, but you also notice right next to the action figures the lightsaber. So this automatically lets us know from the bedroom to the kitchen, this specific spot is letting us know that Wim is a fan of the Force. The question that I'm specifically wondering, as many fans have been, we've been talking about this specific discussion about specific key characters, whether they should be Force sensitive or not. I'm questioning already, is Wim going to use the Force here in the show? Will that occur? Will Jude Law's character become a little bit of a master towards Wim to help him use the Force? That's something that is floating in my brain. I'm just talking about it here on the live stream, but I'm going to be looking to do a video on it for sure. But that's just something that I wanted to bring up here specifically. But yeah, that may be the case. That might be something that may occur, but we won't know until it possibly happens. But yeah, but I do like the layout of the house. Now, there's going to be something I'm going to talk about and bring up in a little bit when it's pertaining to the homes themselves, because Wim and his dad lives in a suburban neighborhood. They technically live in a suburban world or city or whatever. They technically do, because there's some interesting stuff about this culture. very interesting that hopefully they will, because I'm wondering if this is just not a one season show. I'm curious and wondering if this is going to be a 2 season show, because I don't remember hearing anything about this being more than one season. I have to really go and try to find that information. But I do like the way that the house looks, um, and I do like that Wim was just having fun while his dad had originally just left. His dad does mention, I forgot to mention that too. His dad does mention to him like, yes, hey son, you know, blah 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 blah. You know, I'm gonna be, I'm not gonna be home much. Like I'm not gonna be home much. Make sure you do this, make sure you do that. Let me go back. Let me see if it's on the table. He doesn't, because I didn't. That's the one thing don't think I grabbed. I'm just double checking here. Yes, he did. His dad did drop off the Republic credits. It may have been 10 or 15 of them on the table, and Wim ended up pushing them closer to his bowl of cereal. I just didn't grab that specific spot. But again, his father is to me a decent father. It's just that he's just not home because he's a working father. He's from what I remember. I guess he's looking to get a promotion at his job. So he's pretty much tied up on this review and being at the office way more, coming home late, but still at the same time expecting Wim to to do his due diligence of studying and doing whatever. But once it's time for Wim to leave, that's when we see Wim run outside, and we actually see a robot out here with a lawnmower mowing the lawn basically right outside. And that's the one thing that we do definitely need to touch on, is that the fact that there are a lot of robots around. So it just lets me know, it's already letting us, we the viewers, know that this specific city and the function of it is centered around something specific. We're seeing that a lot. And then we also see Wim, when he runs by the robot with the lawnmower, but then he runs by this lady named Miss Ick or Mrs. Ick with her frog dog that is barking at trying to chase after Wim here as he's running down. But this specific spot that I really really love coming up here is when Wim runs into Neil, and they mention Neil says something. It's funny that Neil knows that Wim is behind him, and Neil, says the line, "You shouldn't have come here." It harbinges back to Vader when he talked to Obi-Wan, when he said, "You shouldn't have come back." And they have that stance here where it's like, oh, what's getting ready to happen. They're getting ready to have a fake lightsaber duel fight. And I thought that it was just fun. Like I said, this specific spot even more so, it took me back to me being as a kid, being with my friends, play fighting or whatever, and they have their fake lightsaber duel. But the one thing I did not, little bit of it's very very small, it's not that big of a deal, but little bit of a nitpick is that Wim has the actual fake lightsaber in his hand, but Neil doesn't have anything. I kind of was hoping that Neil would have had his own, but Neil doesn't. I just wish that he would have had it. I was and I'm glad that many fans are on my side. Like, we want to protect Neil at all costs. Neil is a precious character in the show already. But I love that they did this spot here where they walked around each other and, like I said, just play fight with the fake lightsaber duel. When Neil had supposed to be cut, cut Wim's arm, but then Wim does the to me pretty cool, decent little spin around, slice, real quick, boom, and Neil's response was what did he say? He's like, "Oh, my guts, they're all over the ground, they're all over the ground." I just thought that was hilarious. Uh, but then we get the kids across the street, and the one girl was like, "What are y'all doing?" And then that's when they both were just like startled, and the bus pulls up um, to pick everybody up to get them on the bus. Now, this specific spot was funny for the kids when the robot driver uh, was here, and the one little girl who asked like, "Hey, what are y'all doing?" She walks up to the robot, the back of his head, puts some gum on, sticks the gum on the back of the robot's head. That was rude, but at the same time, it wasn't the first time we noticed that the robot has a plethora of gum on the back of its head. Uh, so that lets us know that the kids are being, very rude to this robot driver, and this may even kind of in the back of my brain is making me think like, well, maybe the robot has his gum sticking on the back of his head for days, not just you know whatever it is. But we do see that the kids are on the bus and they're chatting away, and some kids are wrestling with something. Like the two kids in the middle, they're wrestling over something. And Neil was mentioning something about 7 of 9. I don't know the connection to that number, but I do love the fact that here Wim, like I said a few minutes ago, that Wim is a lover of the Force, lover of Jedi and Sith. He has this specific thing, and he's scrolling through and looking at various images, reading whatever these stories are. I want to say these are basically his own version of comic books, I guess, or whatever the case may be. There's specific writing on it that I can't even understand what it's saying. But this was I really do anytime Neil was like scrolling through the stuff, I'm like intrigued to even see what like the colors are, the lightsabers, what's the area specifically, like is it keying on specific stuff when he's looking at this stuff. But I also like this spot coming up here when we get the introduction to Fern and KB, um, with the speeder bike, because the speeder bikes for Star Wars are one of my favorite Star Wars vehicles of all time. It reminds me of basically the speeder bikes from Return of the Jedi, with in the Force with Luke and Leia when they were getting chased by the storm, with the troopers and stuff. Um, Let me see where we at. So we get this, and we do see that literally out of all the kids that are on the bus, Wim is the only one that notices them riding by. And also for at least for me, personally, I kind of feel like Fern reminds me of a little bit of Han Solo. So I feel like she would be the Han Solo character of the four, the Fantastic Four, or however you want to call it. Um, and then we get the once the bus rides by after Fern and KB zooms off, we get to see more of the landscape of Atten here and what it looks like, the culture and everything. Like I said, I do want to talk about the homes because I did notice something about the homes, the structure of the homes too, but we'll dive into that in a little bit. Let's see. But once the kids get to school, we also see other parts of the, like I said, the culture, the buildings and stuff. There's specific writing, specific things meaning certain things that I can't read personally. But we're seeing how this city is structured. The city seems to be like a rich structural agricultural place, but there's some stuff behind it that I'm really curious about, because we do find out some information in episode 2 that I'll be talking about in the next live stream. But I definitely wanted to touch on the fact that there are a lot of robots around. A lot of robots, we see robots inside homes, we see robots outside, we see robots at the school. Robots are everywhere. So it definitely lets me know that if we were to go to, say, Wim's father's, coming back on camera, if we get a scene with Wim's dad, say, at work, I personally would believe that there are more robots around. I kind of feel like, because there are specific robots in the show that are different from other robots, I personally kind of feel like that they are just not there to just say, kind of be there, be helpful, to kind of direct people, direct kids, or because we do see some things. We see certain robots say specific key things to specific characters, and saying like, "Oh, you're in violation," or "Oh, this, that, and the third," or "Oh," it tells me that these robots are keeping, the aliens and the humans and the humanoids in check for a reason. There's a reason why, these robots are placed in specific spots. So it just makes me intrigued on this Aten planet. And of course the sky too, because they also bring up a barrier too in the show. So I'm just like, what else could have we not seen, have we not found out key information as far as Aten is concerned. But once we get inside the school, that's when let me see, what is that? Okay, this spot here, now when we're in the classroom, I didn't get an image. I should have. This specific spot with the robot pointing at, basically the chalkboard. This is basically the chalkboard. It reminded me of specific screens and stuff on, because I'm not only am I coming back on camera, not only am I a Star Wars fan, but I'm also a Star Trek fan. Like, I really love Star Trek. I love, the original Star Trek Next Generation, and Star Trek Deep Space Nine. I'm actually working my way through Voyager. I'm still super early in season 1 because I never watched Voyager. But yeah, that specific spot in the back of the camera there, that reminded me of Star Trek. Specific spots on the ships when, the specific key characters who operate that stuff, it reminded me of Star Trek here specifically. But like I said, they're bringing up, there are a lot of robots around. There's way more going on, and it's right here in front of our faces. But we do get to see the classroom. We get to see the kids. If I remember correctly, this character's name is Rui. She is here. The one girl, like I said, the one girl in the background who talked to them about, what are you doing? Like they don't recognize, fake lightsaber duel fights. But I do love Wim here. When the under president, if I remember correctly, the character, when she's walking around before she goes up in front of the class, I do love this spot here with Wim. He's basically drawing it. It reminded me of something specific. I can't remember. I had it as a kid, and I gotta go back. I don't have to go back. But here, when he's basically doodling, this reminded me of it. Maybe that's what it's called, a doodler. I can't remember. It's something specific. It was a small. Coming back on camera here, the device that I had as a kid was probably about like this and this, and it had two white nods. It was the what you call it was red on the outside, and you held it in your hand, and then you would do this, and it would create whatever that you were trying to create. You really could do what Wim here on the scene here when he was like doodling on. That's him drawing. It was basically you were drawing whatever it was, and then when you were done, you would shake it up, and everything that you drew would disappear. And you could start all over. So it kind of reminded me of that. Took me back. Like I said, this show really took me back to me being a kid many moons ago, and this spot here was just really fun. Like I said, guys, I was smiling ear to ear when I was watching just this first episode. But that's when under like I said, I want to say it was under president or under whomever coming back off of camera. Can't remember her name, but this is actually Fern's mom that we didn't know was Fern's mom until roughly maybe 10 minutes later. But she was talking to the kids, and we do see that again. We found out information that they are building the kids up to just function as a specific piece of the bigger puzzle of Atten. You get tested, you pick a specific career, and you go and you're placed in that specific spot. But they're, at least from what the show is telling us as a viewer, is that at least the kids get to, at least, if not fully go that route, at least attempt to go that route. They at least say like, hey, like, what do you want to be basically when you grow up? And like I said, I do want to believe that Rui, if I remember, if that was her name, I can't remember specifically. She did mention she wanted it to be a something, and that's when Neil. Like I said, I love Neil, love his character. Wim. That's right, Wim. When the under president mentions that tomorrow is the test, basically. He turns to Neil, is like tomorrow, like what? Like I forgot, basically. And Neil had shushed him with his nose. Neil said shush. But I think her name, like I said, I think her name's Rui. She mentions that she wants to be something specific. Can't remember what it was, but we do see that Neil is in like. Neil's not in love. Kids don't know what love really fully means, because they have to go through life and really truly figure out what love really is. Like, to me, as a kid, you're in like more than you're in love. But Neil is feeling Root. Like I said, I hope that I'm not messing up this character's name. I can't remember currently. But through all of that, we get that stuff. But then, the president does indeed ask Wim what does he want to do, and Wim's response was that he wants to basically go on an adventure. He wants to be helpful though while he's on the adventure. And I personally loved Wim's answer, because it's not the normal answer that you would get from what Atten would view as normal. What is the normal? Rui and other people, other kids, they're saying the normal stuff. They want to do this, they want to do that. Wim is one of those characters, just like Fern, which we're going to talk about, just like Fern, where Wim is like, look, I don't want to just be I don't want to, because to me it sounds like he's saying like, I don't want to be like my father either. Like, I don't want to just be somebody who just goes to work. I want to really help, my community, help the planet. I want to, go out here and do some real actual work in the streets to truly help somebody. And that's not a normal response from what they were expecting. And of course the girl in the back laughs at Wim. But then once that happens, then we shift to Fern and KB riding off. Now this was dangerous. I will say this much: this is dangerous. Um, Still, sort of kind of fun to watch. We get to see a little bit more of AT-AT. The what you call it thing in the back there in the middle. I think I could be wrong, but I think that could be a key specific spot for AT-AT. Not just like saying like it could be just like mainly the school, but we do see it a couple of times here in the episode 1. That even could be where uh Wim's dad works. But that's just something that just popped up in my head. And this spot here was, like I said, was really dangerous. Fern just she loves the thrill of this. She really, really does. With the bus and with the buses and they're flying through, and they barely get through. Before ultimately, their speeder bike shuts down, but they get through it, and Fern's like, this was fun, but then of course, the bike shuts down. But I think that once they flew out the tunnel and it landed a specific way, that's where the damage happened to the power converter. Because I love the fact that they mentioned the power converter. Because that's a New Hope. That's Luke. He wanted to go get some power converters, but Uncle Owen shut that down. And like I said, we go back and we get women and Neil, and they're talking about the stuff, and I think I missed it, or because they did mention, maybe it was a little bit further. Actually, no, yeah, I think I did miss it, because they did have a specific conversation about Neil saying to Wim, like, hey, like, I can't believe that you mentioned being a Jedi and stuff like that. And he's like, I didn't say that. And he's like, you technically sort of kind of did. But then he does mention about, his liking of Rui, and wanting to have a conversation, and wanting to basically ask her out and hopefully become, her boot, right? But yeah, so this is where we get the whole power converter, and I was blown away to see that that KB was again harping back to the Star Trek thing. KB's little like visor thing, it reminds me of Geordi LaForge from Star Trek. Geordi LaForge rocks a visor. Geordi LaForge is very smart. He is the chief engineer for Star Trek Next Generation, and I kind of feel like KB would be basically chief engineer for the crew here. So, but the power converter thing mentioned here was just fun for them to bring up per this conversation between. If I can finally get back to where I was. Now, I do like the spot here where Fern is just, like I said, probably like 15 minutes ago, where I mentioned that both Fern and Wim are Antu 100. What's going on? How are you? Hope you're doing well today. I'm really loving the first couple episodes. Fern and Wim are of like minds. They are adventurers. They are adventurous. They're not kids who just want to do and be about the at in life. They want to explore. They want to have fun. They do, they do want to, they are dreamers basically. They are dreamers of an adventurous life again, like I said, outside of the Atom realm. And I love this spot here because Fern is looking out. She's looking up into the sky, which again, the sky has an interesting look to it. They do bring up a barrier, but I'm kind of questioning that barrier though. Let me see. But then we get these kids here that pull up. They pull up. One of them mentions something at the top of my head I can't remember, but it does remind me of the statement itself reminds me of a statement that this statement that the one kid said to Fern and them is that I can't remember the statement that he said, but it's a line from the movie The Breakfast Club. I was just like, oh man, that's from The Breakfast Club. If you've never seen The Breakfast Club, the movie came out back in the 80s. Definitely check it out. It's a really fun movie, really great writing, dialogue between the characters, but they brought up that specific spot. There were just a lot of callbacks from different things, and like I said, Andor, to me, Andor was at the beginning of the episode. Yes, they bring up an Andor planet in episode 2, but there were other things that were speaking to me about Andor season 1. It was speaking to me, like I said, about He-Man, and of course, yes, also too speaking to me about episode 4 with Luke, with Vader, and all of that stuff. It really put a lot of that stuff out there. And to 100, you said that's great. I thought it was awesome, and after Acolyte felt like I was watching Star Wars again. I totally understand. Me personally, I'll just say this real quick. I'll just say, like, the first 3 episodes of Acolyte were at least good to me, and then after that, it just fell off. Like, I was even covering it here on the channel, but then I just stopped. I was just like, I just can't. Like, to me, the writing for Acolyte just fell off. But me personally, I am still glad that Acolyte has its fans, because Star Wars is still fun to watch, still fun. There's still stuff in Acolyte that I can still that I can still converse with other fans about, that say they loved about Acolyte that I just didn't see. We can still dialogue, we can still converse. I'm just glad that they, just like the sequel trilogies, I'm glad that people enjoy and love the sequel trilogies. I personally don't, but I can at least still have conversations with sequel trilogy fans and still converse with them and not not feel like I'm the worst of the worst, or even and vice versa, make them feel like they're the worst of the worst for liking something that I didn't like, or love something that I didn't love. Same thing. So yeah, definitely. Yeah. So after that, where are we? So they do mention in this spot, they do bring up in the conversation about racing. I kind of believe that the racing thing, this conversation, I'm going to come back on camera real quick. This specific conversation, it took me back to Back to the Future. With Marty McFly. There's a specific scene in, I think it was the end of, it may have been movie 3, but when they bring up the racing thing here with Fern and KB, and they're talking about, yeah, meet us here, blah blah blah, but of course they're not going to be able to, because they hop the ship and they fly off. I still believe that we're going to see the racing scene in the show, whatever this racing thing is. I just, because Back to the Future did this. This is why I'm bringing it back to the future, because Back to the Future, they brought up a racing thing in the movie, and it did indeed still occur. The racing thing more so leans more towards episode 1 with the pod racing stuff. That's ultimately what this scene is about. It's about, yes, referencing the pod racing scene from episode 1, because it's still giving us a feel of Star Wars. But I still feel like the racing scene that they're bringing up here is still going to come up. Now, maybe it doesn't, but I just have that feeling that it's still going to happen. It's just that, per this conversation, that it sounded like that they were going to make that happen. They just need, again, harkening back to episode 4 with Luke and the power converters, they got to get a new power converter for their speeder bike and get it fixed, and you know, then they can go race. But because they're out in space wherever they are, they you know, they just couldn't race. Currently, I just feel like the racing thing is still going to happen here in the show. It's just going to happen probably towards the end of the show. To episode 3. Yeah, it's crazy how you bring Breakfast Club back in the future. Yeah, man. Yeah, definitely. Like I said, just a whole bunch of different feelings, different things, different thoughts. Just took it again. This show took me back to when I was a kid, man. It took me back to a lot of those movies and shows that would pop up on my TV screen, and there would be reruns over and over, and I would just stop, and wherever, it didn't matter wherever the show was, wherever the scene was, wherever the movie was in whatever, and I would just stop and like, oh man, there goes my favorite scene, or this is the spot where I remember this scene happening, blah blah blah. And I would just watch. I did not grab it, but this spot here is with Fern. When Fern when Fern gave KB the power converter, the broken one, when she tossed it behind her, I did like the sequence. I forgot to grab it. The sequence here was Fern tossing the power converter behind her, and Fern's bag. I mean, sorry, not Fern. KB tossing the power converter behind her, and Fern's bag plopping down on the ground. I like that transition from that scene to this scene before we get to where we're getting to here, which is Fern's house. I'm bringing this up now. I was going to bring it up a little bit, but I'm going to bring this up now. What I was talking about with the houses. Yes, they are in a suburban cultured house neighborhood, and technically city or whatever, however it's function, right? Not only, and if you're really paying attention, that I'm going to come back on camera here. I have my little blanket here. I'm getting a little cold, but not only are the homes shaped, built, and everything the same way. Like when you really look at the houses, they're constructed to look the same. But if you really looked out on the road, the vehicles, I don't think I grabbed, let me go back and see. The vehicles actually you can see it right here. Let me get off camera. You see those lines in the middle of the street there? The vehicles are structured to basically drive along those, literally in the middle of those lines. They can't go anywhere else. And as you see, even, the house on the right here, if the car wanted to come up and turn, it would have to turn on the line to get into the garage. So, and not only that, the how the roads and everything, there's a specific off the top of my head, I'm losing my train of thought, but there's a specific way that the roads are forming. They're like circling. So at least per the neighborhoods that I noticed in the show. So I'm seeing certain things within the show that are just like, Atten is a very interesting, constructed, very focused on how they are tending to and making the people and humanoids and the aliens. And that's the other thing I want to mention too. I love seeing a lot of these aliens in the show, because that technically is, the aliens are a key role in Star Wars in general. But I'm finding it interesting about how this Atten culture is being shaped, formed, and maybe more than likely manipulated to make this specific planet function or city or wherever that it's whatever it is. So yeah, I just found it very interesting that a lot of the stuff in this show is being is being put in front of us as fans of Star Wars, and we're seeing that this is just another planet, another space out in this very big universe where a different culture, a different vibe is being placed in front of us. Okay. So once Fern gets home, there's a mural in the back. Now, if you look behind Fern, you'll see and notice that there are specific key characters in the mural, but more so, there is at the top up there that her mother even brings to Fern's attention just roughly maybe 30, 40 seconds later. You see that there's, I guess, like this is like the at and symbol. I guess that's what I feel like this is what it is the at and symbol. But like I had mentioned earlier in the stream, is that we see a lot of robots in this culture, in these homes, at the schools, but there are different robots with different functions in at. Um, you're talking, okay. I see your comment, uh, Antu, about Neil. Neil, yes, Neil. We must protect Neil at all costs, right? But this mural behind, there's specific key characters that are in the back. Sorry if you accidentally hit the microphone. They're in the back there, but you really couldn't really see the full mural all like that. But it definitely stood out here specifically. But I do love the fact that Fern has this discussion with the robot and tells the robot like, "Hey, like you didn't see me, I wasn't here." And the robot tries to say like, "Oh, but you weren't up in your room. You just gotten it in." And Fern basically says to the robot, erase whatever the command was, and now the command now is, yes, you did not see me because I was upstairs in my room. This is the command. Stick with the command. But then she tries to run upstairs, and that's when we see the under president, her mom, pop up, and with the rope. She tries to make the statement. Yeah, I was just I was upstairs in my room. I was asleep and blah blah blah. And her mom pretty much just like, didn't you want to have a discussion with me about something? And like I said, that's when her mother brings up this patch, saying that she is back to whatever position that she had at the school, whatever leader or whatever little per her class. She's of importance because her mother is of importance. That's the one thing that I must state, is that that's what the show is telling us, is that her mother has some of importance to her character. Thus, her daughter Fern also has some importance of a character in the show, and that she wants her daughter to have some type of standards that are in line with her, not so much as a position, but that she must still, walk, talk, act in a certain way because hey, you're my child, you're my daughter, and there's a reason why I'm giving you this patch back, because you hold a specific space and place, not just in my home, but outside of my home as well. So yeah. I'm gonna be getting into my theory on that in a little bit, because I'm gonna be diving more into my theory even in episode two of the live stream. Hopefully tomorrow, after work, after I get home from work and I get the screenshots and everything. Because I don't think I'm gonna be able. I'm gonna try to get the screenshots tonight, but we'll see. So there's still so much to talk about. Let me see here. Okay, so we ended up coming back to Wim and the dad and his dad, and he was studying, and he had asked his dad to read him a bedtime story, and his dad shut him down. He's like, "I'm too busy for work." And then his dad was like, aren't you, a little too old uh, for bedtime stories?" Because he was just like, "Hey, like, could you read me a bedtime story like how mom used to?" And like I said, when he gets to the door, he's like, aren't you a bit too old to be read bedtime stories?" Now, me, if I was the father, I'd be like, "Yeah, I'll read you the bedtime story." But that's just me. Not, but again, pops is like, "Look, I gotta get back to work." But I do like this spot here when he was looking, Wim was looking up, and we see the various ships and stuff like that. This to me lets me know, again, like Fern, like I was mentioning with both Fern and Wim, is that this is a reminder to Wim to not lose his inner child, to not lose his venture spot, to not lose that mindset of, hey, like, there's more. Like, I can go out here and get more than just this at in life. There has to be more. He keeps reading. Even at night here, when he's on his bed and he's looking at his little screen here with the Jedi and Sith stuff, and he's scrolling through the stuff. He's reminding himself of stuff that is still really important to him, even as a kid. I really really do love when he's scrolling through these pictures and images and stuff, and we see that he is just a kid out here that just wants to just love stuff, be adventurous and everything. And then we get the shot of the sky. Like I said, the sky looks very, very interesting. Looks very, very, very blue. Blue is like my favorite color. Like, maybe even be a little bit of a greenish in there too. But actually, this spot here, I'm gonna do a video on this too. It still brings me back to Andor. It still brings me back to I forgot the name of the city or the planet. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. Trying to find it. It brings you back to Aldhani and what happens on Aldhani from Andor with the sky and stuff like that. This reminded me of Aldhani with the sky up in the sky. But we do see some red dots or whatever, something, because again, they brought up the barrier and stuff. That seems like the barrier is up there, but I'm questioning that barrier though. I'm curious about that barrier per what happens at the end of the episode. But then that's when we get Neil. Neil's like, it's like Wham. Neil. I do love this spot here because we've been there as kids. We overslept. That's what happened with Wim. He overslept. He's chasing after the base of the school bus. He's trying to get to the school bus. He can't get it. He's trying to yell to Neil like, "Hey, I'm gonna find a shortcut." Blah blah blah. And that shortcut is the speeder bike. Hops on the speeder bike, and I love the speeder bike. Got the little tassels. Again, this reminds me of being a kid. He has the tassels. He has a little basket on the back. Just really, really just cool, right? And he's rushing to. I think. Didn't he run into? Yeah, he ran into Mrs. Ick again, and her dog. Excuse me. And he's rushing. Now this reminded me, if you're an anime fan like me, it popped in my head. It reminded me of Akira the anime, where when he slid on a motorcycle, it was really cool. Um, this kind of reminded me, Wim kind of reminded me of the spot where he slid to not crash into the thing, and I found it funny that he had to get off the bike, and where are you? Did I lose it? I think I lost it. Oh, there it goes. He had to get off the bike and lift the bike up and push it over the little barrier thing. I thought that was funny. I think a lot of fans thought that this spot was funny. Then we get another scene. Look, I felt like this was like a cafeteria scene, but this is even more so like an auditorium, like a gymish type of a feel of a school where this is basically where they're taking their test. Um, and I love you. This is why you love Neil. This right here is why you love Neil. You want a friend, a homie, you know, your ace by your side, the one that's gonna be with you through it all. Neil is the homie for this, because Neil tries to stall for time. Raises his hand like, "Excuse me, blah blah blah. Is there a way? What if somebody's late? They missed the bus and blah blah blah." Neil had Wim's back here, and I love that. I love the fact that Neil stood up to try to stall for time, try any way to be able to just halt stuff, just so that he was hopeful that Wim was gonna arrive. But Wim was what was Wim doing? He was rushing. He was rolling through the woods. This once again it took me back to Andor. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. Took me back to Andor. And he's flying through the woods. He's running in the trees and a whole bunch of stuff. And then we get to the hole here where he definitely buckled. He hurt himself really. He technically did. Probably scraped his knee or something. But he did fall down into the thing. Got dirty. But he ends up finding the basically the ship's main entrance hatch here. And then that's when the robot pops up and tells him violation, blah blah blah. You're restricted area basically, and then takes him back to the school. All right, yeah, because he dug up the thing. And like I said, once again, glad that he still has this, and I'm thinking he still has it back at the ship. He was sitting outside the principal's office or whatever, but he's scrolling through, seeing the images of the Jedi, the Sith stuff, and just buying the time and just enjoying reading this stuff. And I just love the colors of this stuff. I just love this stuff. Like I said, it's like a comic book to him, of the Jedi, of the Sith, of whatever story that is in front of him that he's reading. And it kind of makes me wonder, like, did his mother give him this? Because his father doesn't seem like the person that gave him this thing. It seems like his mom did before she passed away. But Fern pops up, and they do I love the spot here where they do the whole, "Hey, what are you in for? What did you do? Oh, I did this, but what did you do? Oh, okay, blah blah blah." But it's They make it seem like it was prison, but it was really just like you know, kind of like go see the principal. But I just thought that this was just funny per the conversation. And then that's when you know, his dad pops out and tell him he's upset and he had to leave, you know, the review. And you know, that's when Fern brings up the, you know, the what he thought was a Jedi temple, and but that's technically not the case. Um, but yeah, he you know, he points at the thing talking about the Jedi temple, blah blah blah. But he's like, no, that's not it. You know, we're gonna, you know, you're gonna make it happen. You're gonna do the right thing, and you know, I'm gonna take you to school first thing myself, and blah blah blah. But that's when Fern brings up the, you know, the specific thing, and he's like, no, I didn't I didn't say that. You heard wrong, and he runs off. I thought that was funny. But then we get this spot here, and a lot of fans didn't really correlate it. Some fans didn't correlate it. Other fans caught on this. I certainly did. This is, you know, this is just them throwing in the holiday special, the specific spot with the hologram and them coming out, and this was cool. I like that they put that in there, you know, to point at the holiday special real quick. But then that's when Fern heads to Neil's house, and we see the kids, Neil's siblings. They're precious. They're cute. He asks where Neil is. I'm not gonna show, you know, what specifically Neil looks like in a tub, but I found it funny that Fern was up at the top, and Fern was like banging and like, hey, like, you know, blah blah blah. You need to come with me. There's a reason why I need you to come with me. But I do like the garage here. The reason why I like the garage is because there's an image in the back, and it looks like it could be an ancestor of Neil. I don't want to necessarily say like that could be like Neil's one specific parent or something. Kind of feels like this is like a descendant of Neil in the back. But I did like that image here when they were talking about, you know, conversing about like, hey, like we need to go check this thing out because it's just seems like just a cool spot. But I did like this spot here with them, and they, you know, they head off and they get there. But when they get there to the ship, I'm glad that Wim caught this immediately. Is that, hey, like that entrance hatch wasn't fully exposed the last time I was here. Somebody's been here, and then we see that KB decides to use the little voice changer on her visor. And Fern and KB are here, and Fern has the shovel. Like I said, Fern like literally, I feel like Fern is like the Han Solo of the crew. With the jacket, with the way she carries herself, she just, yeah, I kind of feel like Fern would be the leader of this crew. That's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like these four mesh together really well. Like, they did it really well with the casting of these four. And I also like the fact that, per this conversation that they talked about, that's a specific video I'm going to do, but I'm just going to mention it here on the channel, on the live stream, is that they do the whole, you know, you can't claim claim the no, you know, the like we were here first, so we claim this spot. No, you didn't claim it here. You know, the little kid stuff that we used to do back in the day. You know, no give backs, you know, blah blah blah. We're the first claimees, blah blah blah. I really like this spot here that they put here with the dialogue between these four, and them negotiating as well. I love the negotiating where Fern tricked Wim and Neil to basically shovel to get inside, or at least attempt to get inside the ship. And you know, which they do, and they'd even do the handshake thing, which was cool. I love that spot here too. And then that's when we get the nighttime stuff. I'm not sure if you can see this, Because plus, this is also too when Wim's dad pops up. I mean, Wim's dad pops up. They go into hiding real quick, and then eventually, because I love that KB is using her visor to really, because I think she does it. If I remember correctly, she did it again in episode 2, where she used a visor to do something specific, either on the ship or outside the ship or something like that. But she used this to basically open the door of the ship. Because I was really curious about what was going on. I didn't really pick up that it was a ship until one specific spot. But once they were inside the ship, they had a lot of the dialogue, and they ended up getting split up because Wim is the one that caused this stuff, and more than likely in episode 3 or moving forward, Wim's gonna be the one, because Wim's the one reason why they technically all are there on the ship. Wim's the reason why they end up fly off. Even here specifically, Wim's getting ready to touch that handle, and they're like, no, don't do it. He was like, I wasn't gonna do it. Like, dude, like he caused a lot of this stuff, just like, man, like he's too, that's the thing, Wim is adventurous, but he's too adventurous. He's too much of a stronger Curious George than even Curious George is, right? But I do love that that KB hits the side of whatever machine twice and then turns the power on even more so. But this specific spot is when I found it was right here when we found out the ship was upside down, but it was right here when I seen the cockpit, and I was like, oh, it's a ship. Like I said, I don't know how I didn't see it the first time. But this is what stood out to me when it was pertaining to the ship. But of course, this specific spot, when Wim sees the green button glowing, yeah. So we're seeing. That's the thing about the show that we're seeing in the show. We're seeing the color like green, whatever this green is. We like the cereal, the milk. The milk is like a greenish bluish color. The sky is like a greenish color. And then we got the blue, the blue button for green. And like I said, Wim, yeah, he decides to push the button. He didn't have to, but he decides to do it. Like, come on, dude. Really? You just had to, didn't you? Did. And then that's when, we get all of that, and the ship starts moving and function. The door opens, they go up to the top. They see that Wim's dad is out there, because Wim does indeed care. He is a father that does love his kid. It's just that he's just too busy a lot of times because he's at work. But we're seeing this stuff, and we're like, oh, they're getting ready to fly off into space, right? And there's literally nothing that Wim's dad can do. Like, really, any parent in this situation, there's nothing, unless you were like Superman or Wonder Woman or something, you could really fly up to save them. Yeah, there's nothing that anybody could do but just stare and be like, oh no, like, why is this happening right now? But then, like I said, they actually see out in space. Now, the one thing that I want to mention here is that they mentioned the barrier and stuff like that. They mentioned that up in space. They mentioned that barrier, but when the ship goes up into space, there's nothing that's stopping it. That's the one thing that I noticed about this spot, is that if, like, when you looked at the scene with the greenish sky and the red dots and stuff like that, it made me feel like, yes, if there's a barrier up there, wouldn't it block the ship from going out? But at the same time, I'm curious and wondering, like, maybe the ship is, say, connected to the barrier, to where if the barrier is there, this specific ship that was, under this ground or whatever for however long, that, it only this type of ship could fly through the barrier, and any other regular normal ship can't. So that's just something that I'm kind of quite like, if there's an actual barrier, how did the ship get out there? What, was it even the button that that Wim had pushed to get the ship started, flying up in space. And then, that's when eventually, over time, over the next couple seconds, that's when they go into hyperspace. And we get what I had sitting at the thing. We get their reaction, them yelling, screaming, or whatever in fear, as the ship is flying out into hyperspace. I just love all four of their reactions. Like, literally all four of their reactions were priceless. Yelling, screaming in fear, confusion, and all. Don't really know what's really going on. I just really, really thought that this specific spot here was hilarious and funny, as they are flying into space to wherever they were heading to. So that that was episode 1. I kind of knew that I was going to get through episode 2 because it's late night. It's, pushing, getting ready. It's 20 minutes to 10 p.m. I'm tired. I'm getting ready to go to bed because I got to get up and go to work in the morning. Got to work the next 4 days. But like I said, I'm going to look to come home, rush home, grab these screenshots as quickly as possible for what I want to talk about. I'm going to try to grab a little less than what I have here from today so that I can be able to do this live stream tomorrow. Hopefully I can do it tomorrow. If I can't do it tomorrow, then I'll definitely do it Tuesday. But then Tuesday I'll be definitely working on my, well, actually no, it might not be too. It'll be the next. It'll be like Wednesday if I don't make the decision to stay up late to do a video real quick for Wednesday because I have to work Wednesday. I'm an early bird, guys. I start work at 5:36 in the morning. So yeah. But yeah, like I said, I've loved episodes 1 and 2. Made me feel like such a kid. Took me back to the 80s. A lot of feels from the 80s. A lot of stuff, man. Like, man, yes, this at least these first 2 episodes really just hit home for me. Hit great for me. I loved it a lot, and I can't wait for episode 3 on Tuesday. Like I said, hopefully Tuesday night I can hopefully put something together. Because I think the episode drops at 9:00 Tuesday night. So I'm old, guys. I'm not young as I look, but I can't stay up most nights. I'm like literally tired right now. Technically, like I said, it's 9:40 p.m. I'm usually asleep before this time. Like I'm heading to bed usually I head to bed at 8:30, and I'm pretty much asleep by 9ish or something like that. So yeah, especially if I gotta go to work the next day. But with that, guys. If you've made it this far to the live stream, leave some comments, comment section below. Let's talk about some things. And to 100, thanks for stopping by. I do appreciate it. Like I said, great conversations with you who decided to stop by. But I'm out. Like I said, be on the lookout for another video. I'm going to look to work on that as well. Just something that I popped in my head that reminded me of something that I need to it's going to be a real quick, maybe 15-second video I'm going to put together from a scene here and from another scene from another movie that reminded me of something. So, but let's get ready for episode 3 on Tuesday, guys. I can't wait. Looking forward to it. And like I said, I'll look to do my discussion stream hopefully tomorrow evening around the same time, 6:00, 7 p.m., 7:30, something like that, to talk about episode 2 of Skeleton's Crew. But with that, have a good rest of your evening and the night, and I'll hopefully talk to you all with the next streaming video to come soon. And remember,